If you're watching this, you probably want to create generational wealth. And guess what? It's not like rich kids are born with higher IQs. We already know that. But they do have advantages. So, what are those advantages? It's declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge, beliefs and skills. I'm going to do my absolute best to share as many of these in this video as humanly possible. 1. Don't despise wealth. The easiest way to stay poor is to believe rich people are evil. And I'll tell you this, every single self-made billionaire I have personally met has been great. And I think a big part of that is because they were self-made. You have to be understanding. You have to be somewhat of a people person. You have to learn how to influence. You have to learn how to promote. These are all things you must do. We live in this world where the media pushes this idea that billionaires are somehow evil people. But all the ones I've personally encountered have been amazing, and they've gone out of their way to help. They've given first, and I imagine those behaviors are what got them where they are. Naval Ravikant had this great quote, "Understand that ethical wealth creation is possible. If you secretly despise wealth, it will elude you. You can't hate rich people and then at the same time want to become one." I mean, I guess you could, but it'd be kind of weird. Some poor parents unintentionally teach their kids that money is scarce and that rich people are greedy or bad. The flip side is that wealthy parents teach that money is everywhere and that creating value deserves some sort of reward through exchange. That's the fundamental of capitalism, voluntary exchange. The key word is voluntary. Two people choose to interact, choose to make a trade. And the beautiful thing about capitalism is that both people say, "Thank you." It's one of the only things in human nature where people do things and both people say thank you. You go to the cash register, you buy the shoes, the store owner says, "Thank you," and you say, "Thank you." Both people have a net positive sum from the exchange, and that's how overall economies grow. If you want to grow your own personal economy, the idea is, how can I create as many of these positive sum exchanges as possible? And if you do enough of those positive exchanges, why would you not want lots of people to thank you? Because if a lot of people thank you, it means that you were doing something good that people will exchange money for. And if you do that a lot of times, you'll have a lot of money. How did this somewhere get distorted? A lot of that's media. At the end of the day, money is just a tool. It allows you to exchange. It's literally just an intermediary for exchange. As a result, it will lubricate the number of exchanges that you make. If you're somebody who tends to do bad stuff, when you have more tools to do bad stuff, you do more bad stuff. If you were a good person, I won't even try to define that, but let's just say good person, who has a tool, they will be able to do more good stuff. You're probably not going to be able to create generational wealth if you hate money. 2. Passive income is often active for someone else. Most people can't even take a shot at wealth because they believe in one of the biggest lies out there, that passive income equals BS. Let me explain. Passive to you means active to someone else. There's always someone who is active. It's less of a binary of active versus passive and more of a continuum. It's like, where do you live on this continuum? Let's say this is all active and this is all passive. It's very rare that you have things that are purely passive. You can absolutely buy a dividend ETF, and the only thing that's not passive about that is making the decision and doing the research to do that, and whatever work you did to get the money. But beyond that, yes, the dividend you get from that would be passive. The thing is, most people who see rich people assume that they have all of this passive money that's coming in. All the richest people that I know for sure have passive income, but they've got way more active income. Most people are trying to get rich on passive when they need to make active income first. I'll tell you a story. We own an advisory practice. It's functionally like management consulting. We go in, we look at a company, we help them grow. It's actual custom work, not like courses and coaching. All the guys I have are ex-MBAs, ex-McKinsey, ex-BCG, ex-Bain consultants who work with big companies, and that's because we can help companies grow. I work with some companies in a very acute format where I'll spend a day with, say, 10 founders, and we'll go really deep on some of the strategies in their business. They pay for that. Someone might see that and say, "Alex, why would you trade time for money?" Well, think about it like this. If I'm going to work no matter what, say, Monday through Friday, 12 hours a day, is 60-hour week. If I have something else that can make me more money for that time, why would I not do it? Because then I can turn around and take that active income and say, hey, maybe I'm going to take some of that and trade it for some money over here that's a little bit more passive. And over time, you just increase the amount that you make per hour on the active side, and then you have a percentage that goes into passive. But the thing is, as you become more and more skilled, your active income will proportionally increase. The TLDR is that people will spend 100 hours trying to make $100 a month passive when they could have just made $10,000 getting paid for their active time. That's a bad trade. And so what everyone seems to forget is that the people with passive income often had active income first. It's like going to the gym. You have to put in the active work in the gym for a very long period of time before eventually you can have a passive body, meaning you can just work out once a week and more or less maintain your physique. But it takes a long time to get there. Everyone trades their time for money. It's just about how much leverage you get, how much you get per hour in. So max out your active earning hours first until you have truly gotten all your passive income to the point where it can cover your current lifestyle. The vast majority of people I've met who've made a tremendous amount of money usually have a period of time where they do the cocktails on the beach, and then they come back and say, yeah, that wasn't for me. To a person, I'm talking like I can't even think of one off the top of my head that hasn't said that. It's just this myth, and the thing is, the myth keeps you poor because you make those trades. You spend 1,000 hours working so you can make $1,000 a month rather than taking the 1,000 hours and continuing to up-level your skills so you can trade those hours for higher dollars. I'll give you a business example. This is a little more advanced, but bear with me. Let's say you have the opportunity to have a 10 per month customer, and that person I ask going to stay for 60 months. People would see this and say, 10 a month, that means it's super low churn. This must be a very valuable business. Blah, blah, blah. If you could get that same customer to pay $1,000 up front for a lifetime deal, should you do it? Yes, $1,000 is worth more than $600. But the thing is that people obsess about the $10 a month and forget about the $1,000 up front. They do this in their businesses, and they do this with their time. 3. It's your fault and your problem. Once you've focused on active income, you need to understand something that separates the wealthy from everyone else who stays stuck. Number 3. It's your fault. Let me explain. These 3 words will get you out of poverty. It's my fault. One of the best ways to stay poor is to blame everyone else for your problems. And I want to be clear, it might not be your fault, but it still is your problem. So maybe I should better say this to less triggered people, it's your problem. And no one else is going to solve it for you. Your trauma is real, your problems are valid, and absolutely no one is coming to save you. Once you accept that, you become dangerous. It actually doesn't matter if it's your fault, but it is your problem. You have to solve it because no one else will, and that allows you to actually do something about it. My dad came to this country with $1,000 to his name, but he taught me a lot of lessons, including accountability. If my father had been a hedge fund manager managing $20 billion, I would have a very different life. I knew what Baltimore rich was. My dad's a doctor. But then I eventually saw what Vanderbilt and New York money was. New York finance money, New York real estate money. I was like, holy cow. I was rubbing shoulders with some of the world's wealthiest people when I went there, and it completely shifted my worldview of honestly just what was possible. These are beliefs, declarative knowledge, knowing about something. I didn't know this was possible. I didn't know about this stuff. Investment banking, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, private equity. I'd never heard of any of this stuff. Literally, the highest income vehicle I had heard of at the time was just become a doctor, and doctors make good money. My goal was $100,000 a year. So I say this so that you guys don't think I somehow sprang into existence with billion-dollar aspirations. I just wanted to make 100 grand. That was the goal for a while. The thing is that average parents will blame the economy, the government, or the system. They say, we have these disadvantages. It's harder for people like us. They'll say those things, and more importantly, their kids will believe them and then, as a result, change their behavior to make it antithetical or unlikely to them actually getting out. So their parents hurt their kids to protect their ego. And I'm saying both egos. They protect their child's ego and they protect their own ego. But if they were able to say, we're not rich because I don't have the skills and I never learned them, but I want you to. How do you operationalize this? You use what you've got. Once you figure out that it's your fault, People wait for perfect conditions to start when in reality, starting is the perfect condition. And that's when you can start actually making decisions that lead to wealth, like understanding principle number 4. 4. Solve rich people's problems. Solve rich people's problems because they pay better. When you solve rich people's problems, you get to charge rich people prices. And here's why this matters. If somebody has $100 in their bank account and you're asking for $50, you're asking for 50% of their net worth. For them, it's a very important decision. But that same $50 might be less than 1% of a rich person's net worth, so they don't even care. It would just be the equivalent of trying to sell $1 to that person with $100 in their bank account. They probably would barely even notice it. Most parents teach kids to get a job serving anyone who will hire them. Wealthy parents teach kids to target specifically high-value markets with specific problems that higher skills can help solve. Focusing on serving valuable markets, not just any market, is what they transfer to their kids. I mean, the easiest way to figure out where the money's at is to look at who's already rich and see what they're doing. The thing is, no one gets rich on passive income. They get rich on active income, and then it goes passive, and then they talk about it. 5. Prioritize earning over saving. Here's where most people go wrong, even when they're solving valuable problems. They're obsessed with the wrong side of the wealth equation, which is number 5. And this is going to ruffle some feathers. You want to prioritize earning over saving. One of the biggest mistakes poor people make is they think they can save their way to wealth. The truth is, it's better to focus on how to 10x your income than save an additional 10%. Because at the absolute hypothetical max, all you can do is save 100%. You could live on nothing. You could live on the streets and somehow show up to work or whatever it is that you do to make money and save 100% of what you make. But the thing is, if you're making $30,000 a year, it just takes forever, even at 100%. This is not an efficiency problem. This is an absolute volume issue. You have an income problem, not a spending issue, as much as people are irresponsible with their spending, and they are. I think they're more irresponsible with how little they try to optimize their earning. I'll give you a couple of very easy examples. You can do the exact same job in a different city and make 30 to 40% more and work remote. You can just work remote for a different company and make significantly more money. What's crazy to me is that people don't just consistently apply to jobs that make more money, even just in the job market. Why wouldn't you? If you're incredibly poor right now, someone will take a shot on you, and you know what? You might just learn something that you can take with you for the rest of your life. And you also get this crazy thing called experience, which also stays with you. You gain evidence. This is the simplest example I can give you. What I just explained was arbitrage. The other version is just an arbitrage of time. Let's say that you, instead of saving, let's say you have the option. Let's say you have $500. This is actually a real question. Somebody messaged me and said, I have $1,000 in my bank account. What should I invest in? And they actually said, what stock should I invest in? It was a DM I got, and it was so interesting because I was like, man, I can't believe he would ask me this question because it's so absurd. It misses the point. But this is why I'm making this video, right? That $1,000 will literally never become anything. Now you might be like, man, if I put $1,000 into Bitcoin in 2013. Let me pull you off the ledge for a second. If you had done that, you would have $121,000. Can't retire on that. I mean, you can live for a couple of years, but you're not going to do much with that. The point is that they're trying to hit these meme coins. They're trying to figure out whatever other BS. But the question automatically was wrong because he was optimizing around the wrong vehicle. He thought he was going to passive income his way or even hit it big. But the issue is that you can't retroactively look at one decision and say, what if I put all my money in Bitcoin in that year? I would be so rich right now, and you wouldn't be for two reasons. Number one is that if it had gone up and doubled, you would have sold it. Number two, if you actually did done that, then you would have made another 100 other stupid decisions, and you have to factor in those decisions too. That decision-making calculus would be one of incredibly high risk. So it's very likely that you wouldn't have made money at all because it wouldn't have been $1,000. You would have put $10 into Bitcoin because the other $990 you would have put into other 999 other stupid things. And I'm not saying Bitcoin's stupid. That's not my point. The point is just that would have been a higher risk decision at that time. So what do you do with your $1,000? You buy skills. Now, I say that, and people are like, well, how do I buy a skill? One is you can get paid to earn a skill when you get a job, and you actually ask them, hey, I would like to learn these things. Will you pay for it? Will you let me learn it from somebody else who already works here? And guess what? Most employers say yes. You know why? Because no one does that. Because everyone's lazy. Everyone's afraid. I can't ask them if they'll pay for me to learn something. Why not? Think about this for me. If you make $60,000 a year and you're like, hey, can I learn this other skill? And I would say, okay, once you learn this other skill, let's say you want to go to a conference for 2 days that teaches a specific thing on, TikTok shop, whatever. Like, okay, well, how are you going to use that when you get back? Well, I think that if I take that, I could probably sell the books on TikTok shop. I'd be like, okay, I can see why that would make us more than $5,000. Great deal, go for it. Now, what do? I'm happy to shell out the $5,000 because it'll make me more back, and you're happy to learn it because it makes you more valuable overall. Why would you not do that? Alternatively, you say, hey, Neil, you're really good at M&A. Do you mind if we have lunch? You're going to eat either way. I would love to eat with you, and if you want, I'm happy to tell you about the stuff that I'm good at on the media side. And maybe Neil says no, but you know what? You can ask 20 other people. That's free learning in terms of skills. Like, you know what? My job sucks. Everyone is stupid. My boss is an ass. Whatever. Then what do you do with your $1,000 now? So I just gave you free skills, paid skills. I just love this example. I've used it before, but it's so good. A friend of mine's daughter, making minimum wage, wants to save money. He says, hey, why don't you just triple your minimum wage? She says, how? He says, why don't you just go get a phlebotomist certification? It takes a weekend, and it's $500, and then you pass the test, and then after that, 8 weeks or whatever it is, you can then make 3 times your earning power. That's going to pay more dividends than any S&P, any Bitcoin, any meme, anything. Because the thing is, even if you do hit it big, what do you do when you have $100,000 after that? You're stuck, but the thing is that you become the money faucet when you stack your skills. You can start at the lowest tier, which is like, will anyone I know teach me stuff? Above that, you've got YouTube videos where you can teach yourself. And there are lots of experts who are very good at teaching things on the internet that will help. Above that, you're like, okay, well, I have a job. Maybe I'll learn from somebody who works here, and I know that these skills are valuable because my boss pays them more than they pay me, and I would love to learn it. On top of that, you ask your boss, hey, can I go somewhere where I will find out a skill that will make you more money? And guess what? I know that skill is valuable because he'll pay more for it. If none of those other things, and if you're like, wow, those are 4 very legitimate paths to learning. Duh. On top of that, then finally you say, you know what? No one I know in my business, outside of my life, and I can't find it on the internet or I would need more personalized attention. Then you take that and you get a tutor. That's it. You go to certification. You get a tutor. You get a teacher. You learn. That's how I learned Facebook ads. I just paid someone early. I said, teach me. And then I made way more back. The thing is that real-world skills like running ads, building landing pages, learning how to write copy, learning how to sell, these are all skills that are super valuable in the marketplace and available for free online. So if you're like, I'm making minimum wage, I'm making $40,000 a year, I don't know how to escape it. It's like, dude, pick one and stick with it. That's it. And then ask people if they need it. So if you did spend that money to draw blood, you earn way more from a tiny investment. That's why you don't save. Spend more on the earning. And I'll tell you a little secret. I spent 100% of my money every single month until I could not spend the money because I was making too much of it on learning more stuff. So we're talking 20, 30, 40, 50. I just kept plowing it in because I kept getting a better return on that than anything I could put it into. I'll give you this little rule of thumb. The day you stop investing in education for yourself and skills is the day that you decide you're good enough and you don't want to grow anymore. So if you're not investing in anything now, then you've already decided that you don't want to get better than you are. My favorite way of saying this is that instead of investing in the S&P 500, invest in the SME 500. Because that $1,000 triples your income versus turning from $1,000 to $1,100 a year later. Whoop-dee-doo. 6. Reputation over everything. Once you start earning these skills, what else do rich parents say? Reputation over everything. Trust is earned in drops but lost in buckets. Never trade reputation for money. You can only get one of them back. Poor parents focus on this month's bills. Rich parents focus on this decade's wealth-building skills. Every deal I've done with someone who says they value relationships and morals above everything else has done the opposite. So I prefer dealing with people that just say they want to make money, and ironically, it tends to keep everyone honest. Your reputation is your most valuable asset, and I'm willing to leave money on the table on this deal so there are future deals. The moment you prioritize short-term cash over long-term investments, you've already lost. What you're missing is the value of a story. Let me explain. I was studying Rockefeller, and he was telling a story to his son about how he made his first really big acquisition. Rockefeller was the second biggest oil producer in a city in Ohio. I think it was Cincinnati. He was number 2. The number 1 guy was significantly bigger than him. So he approached the number 1 guy and said, "Hey, I want to buy you out." The guy scoffed at him, laughed him off, and then he came back. He said, "No, I'm serious." And he was like, "All right, fine, let's talk." And so the guy said, "I'm not going to sell unless you're going to give me an absurd amount of money." And so then Rockefeller lined up the financing and gave the guy an absurd amount of money. In other words, he overpaid for the guy's business. After the deal was done, the other guy, who was once the bigger guy, was like, "Man, you overpaid for that thing. It wasn't even worth close to that." And the crazy part is that when Rockefeller tells the story, he said he was right. I overpaid for it. But what he failed to consider was that in the next 60 days, Rockefeller could say he was the number 1 biggest oil producer in Ohio. As soon as that happened, he did 22 amended deals in the next 60 days, rolling up everyone around him because he became the biggest player. That story, the delta between the value of what that company was actually worth versus what he was willing to pay, that value was what John Rockefeller valued the story at. He might have even valued it higher than that, and his return on that delta created the next 22 deals he was able to do. And I think we can all agree that it seemed to work out pretty well for him. People underestimate the value arbitrage that exists in a story, and stories also go both ways. If there's a story that's equal opposite of that where you're like, "Hey, if I do this." I'll give you an example. I personally have zero ethical issues with, girls who do OnlyFans or whatever else. And I'll take a second to say I believe that people have their own choice, and as long as they're not hurting other people, they should be permitted to do it. Is it the career path that I would necessarily choose? No, I wouldn't. I would just try and find something else. But do I have any issues with that? No, I don't. Of course, some people who listen to my stuff will be like, "Oh, that's terrible." Then amazing. I love that you have your own values. That's great. You don't need to attack mine. The point is, I've had multiple deals that have come to me that have been not even necessarily in that space, adjacent to it. And honestly, I met the people, amazing people, sometimes great business people, and I was like, "I can't do the deal. I'm really sorry." And they're like, "But I thought that you were very like, hey, you're just like very, everything is what it is, we all die, whatever." And I was like, I am. The thing is that me even having to give the disclaimers I did is because not everyone that I do business with is. And so that reputation would follow me, and so it's just I'm not willing to make the trade. Reputation goes both ways, and the thing is, most reputational stuff is very irreversible. It's a one-way door, and so I would rather maximize as many one-way doors that are permanent and good than permanent and bad. 7. Buy time, not stuff. So that leads to Rockefeller bought this story. He bought this element of reputation he was able to leverage. What else do rich people buy? They buy time. And time is a very amorphous thing, right? Because it really means like I buy excess capacity so that I can reallocate that capacity to something that is going to get me a higher return than this inanimate object. I'll tell you a micro story of this. How do you make this tactical? When I was single and in my early 20s, I ate at Chipotle over 500 times in 1 year. I didn't know that. I found out from my accountant who was like, "Why do I have 500 transactions at Chipotle?" I was like, "Well, He's like, "You really got to cut down on this bill." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "You're spending so much money there." I was like, "Well, I don't buy groceries. I don't prep food. I don't do any of that. And that amount of time that saves me," I was like, "I can do sales all day. And one sale is $500, and that takes 30 minutes. So I'm happy to just do that." Everybody trades time for money. Everyone does, whether they like it or not, because we live in time, and we get money over that same period of time. So all money you earn is related to some time that you spent getting it, deciding it, doing a deal, whatever. There was some time. Now it might not have been denoted in a time of, you get this per hour, but you could say, it took 100 hours to make this deal, and then I made the deal, and I made $10 million. It's like, okay, well, you took $10 million divided by 100, and that's how much you made. You made $100,000 an hour. Great. And so if there's something else that's worth more than $100,000 an hour, you should do that instead. And so getting out of this mythology and just looking at it like it's, and getting out of this black and white thinking and just thinking, okay, what are the facts? What are the observables? Let me give you the single best trade that you only get to make once in your life. It costs $1,500 a month. I'm going to break it down for you. If you replay any part of this video, this will be it. The best ROI you'll ever get for $1,500 a month is that you use that $1,500 to eliminate all time-consuming human tasks and gain back all the productive hours. So let me tell you what it adds up to. Let's say that food costs you 50 hours per month, which is a lot. Food costs a lot of time. To get that food completely taken care of for you is about $800. What else do we got? We've got cleaning the house. We've got cleaning clothes. Now, both of these, cleaning the house is somewhere probably around 25-ish hours per month. You've got cleaning and folding clothes, which is about 16. And if you're like, where are these numbers coming from? This is from Z Research on the internet. You can look it up on your own. Doesn't really matter though. You're going to get the point in a second. So you can replace cleaning for about $500 a month, and you can replace clothes for probably about $200 a month. What does all this add up to? If you add all this stuff together, you're going to save 96 hours per month for a cost of $1,500. So rough math here, if you know how to make more than $15 per hour, this trade makes sense. Now I'm going to do you one better. Even if you don't make $15 an hour, if you take the 96 hours every month to try and learn how to make more than $15 an hour, you can learn that in a month. Here's the good news and the bad news. The good news is that this 100% works. The crazy part is that I talk to entrepreneurs who are making $1 million a year, and they don't even do this sometimes because they feel guilty about it. But they just, again, they believe, they buy into the mythology. And if you can't explain your beliefs, then they're not your beliefs. They're someone else's. So you just heard this thing, and someone got poo-pooed in front of you when you were a kid for feeling fancy by having a maid, and you say, "Oh, I'm never going to have a maid when I grow up." But it's dumb. It's a bad trade. It's like you think about your business in one way, your cost and expenses and your income, and then when you think about your personal life, you're like, "Oh, I'll mow my own lawn." It's like, why? And so you can only, and I told you there's two things, good news, bad news. The bad news is that you can only make this trade once because you can't recoup. If I could keep spending $1,500 and getting 96 hours back, my God, that would be amazing. But it doesn't work that way. You can only do that trade once. And that's because there are plenty of businesses that are set up, and there are plenty of other people who have fewer skills who are willing to do it for less. So if something doesn't buy you time, strongly consider not buying it. Stop buying so much stuff because at the end of the day, do you want to look rich or do you want to be rich? Here's a little +1, an advanced wealth tip for you. Rich people aren't impressed by stuff. Buy your Lambo, your Rolex, right? They're impressed by how rich you'll be in 20 years. If I see a younger guy who's flashing a watch, I just think, how silly. You could have taken that, and then in 20 years from now, that would have been something significantly bigger, maybe a building or a business. I remember the very first event that I ran for Gym Launch, and this is when I was a cash millionaire at this point. I pulled up, and it was in my wife Layla's car, so it was a Prius. We shared a car, a Prius, with a cracked windshield and a dent in the side door. I pull up, and all these people, all these gym owners are there because I'm supposed to help them make more money, right? And I remember, and you think that like, oh no, they're going to think or they're going to say something. Oh no, they said something. So I remember this particular gym owner was walking, and there's a group of them, and they see me. Some of them keep going. One of them stops and then just barrels over to where I am taking my stuff out of my car, and she says, "I thought you were supposed to be rich." It's what she said. I thought you were supposed to be rich. I remember, and you know, kudos to younger me at the time. I said, "Don't judge my car." I said, "Judge my bank account." And that worked. She was like, "Oh, okay, good way to think about." And then we walked in, it was all good. But I remember that story because people do judge a book by its cover, but she was not very rich, and so she was judging me in that way. Don't get poor people rich, because poor people rich will keep you poor. Look at the Zuckerbergs and the Bezoses. They dress like regular people. Now, to be fair, they try and brag in other ways with their $300 million yachts, but relative to $100 billion, it's literally less than 1% of their income, which is absurd. I remember for me, I spent 16 months trying to figure out my Darwin outfit, 5 pieces that work for the gym, restaurant, work, or the pool. And sometimes I have to negotiate my window to restaurants that Layla wants to eat at because of the dress code. But at the end of the day, for me, I can travel for weeks with a small backpack, get my entire wardrobe in my bedside table. And so for me, that's more valuable. Now, I want to be clear, there are some people who like nice suits and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, and maybe in some season of my life I'll do that. But I think the key is that you're doing it for you and not for anyone else. You want to buy time, not stuff, so it continues to compound. 8. Avoid bad environments. What's going to help you compound all this even faster? Avoid bad environments. What's a bad environment? I would say a bad environment is any environment that decreases the likelihood of achieving your goals. This research has been cited all over the place. One of the longest longitudinal studies on success is that there's a high correlation between your success and your reference group, aka the 5 people that you compare yourself to. When you cut bad friends, it's not that you're being antisocial, it's that you're raising your standards. If you want to change your actions, the easiest thing to do is change your environment. Average parents teach kids to get along with everyone. Wealthy parents teach kids to ruthlessly create their circle. I'll be real, there are some parents, and this isn't me poo-pooing parents, but that basically let their kids hang out with anyone. I mean, I could tell you that did not fly in my household. Anybody who was going to hang out with me when I was a kid. I didn't know that my parents were helping me in that way when I was younger, is that they made sure that the people that I was friends with were cool. And by cool, I mean like going somewhere, like not scrubs. If you're ambitious and young and you have friends who are less ambitious than you, don't be friends with them. And then find people who are more ambitious than you, and don't let them be more ambitious than you. Because if your friends don't have goals, your goal should be to get new friends. My fastest one strike policy is if I feel like you're anything but stoked when I win, I don't need you. Like, I already have enough people rooting against me, right? It shouldn't. At the very least, my friends should root for me. Friends root for you to win and to make you better. Enemies tell you to put your goals on hold and secretly hope for you to lose. Think about how wild this is. Let's say that the people in your life, do they increase or decrease the likelihood you achieve your goals? Now, don't think about intention. Don't think about their reasoning. Just accurately ask yourself this. This is a little bit of objectivism, and this is how I see the world, which also makes it's far more powerful for predicting what's going to happen. Does this person increase or decrease the likelihood to hit my goal? If these answers decrease, when you have 2 or 3 or 4 of those, you've got 3 or 4 people that are decreasing the likelihood to hit your goal. That adds up. Now, on the flip side, if you had multiple people that increase the likelihood to hit your goals, what do you think happens? You rise up. If someone calls themselves a friend but acts like an enemy, treat them like one. The most dangerous enemies are the ones who call themselves your friends. And if you define enemies as people who decrease the likelihood to hit your goals, a lot of the people you think are your friends are your enemies. And on the other side, there may be people who actually are your enemies who might be your friends. If you're competitive with someone and all they do is drive you to do better because they're your frenemy, they serve real value. Maybe you are better friends with them. Kind of interesting. So when someone tells me they have a lot of friends, All I think is they just have low standards. Why does having a reference group full of ambitious and successful people help you? I'll give you my theory. Motivation is the equal opposite of deprivation. So let's say this is the goal, and this is you. The greater the gap is between these things, the greater the motivation. If I just ate lunch, I am not that motivated to eat because I'm not deprived of food. If I don't eat for 3 days, I'll be incredibly motivated to eat because I am deprived of food. If you haven't slept in 2 days, you're very deprived of sleep and therefore very motivated to sleep. Now, how does that work with successful behaviors? Well, let's say money because it's a simple one. Let's say you want to make more money. If you are the wealthiest person of the people you compare yourself to, your motivation to make more money will be significantly lower. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying it will be. If the people you compare yourself to, even if you're around poor people, make a lot more money than you, then your deprivation will be significantly higher. And you would think though, wait, shouldn't all poor people be more motivated to make money? No, it's about who they compare themselves to. And if you were the richest of your poor friends, you might feel like a baller. And again, nothing wrong with that, but I only talk about increasing likelihoods. I'll give you a real-world example of this. Who do you think makes more money, married guys or single guys? Ironically, people are like, I don't want that expense, I don't want a wife and kids. Well, married guys make more money on average. Kind of interesting, and married men with kids make more than just married guys. The thing is, why would that be a thing? They make more money because they need more money. They have more deprivation for money when they have 4 kids than they have no kids. And when you have a wife and 4 kids, you got to make more money. That drive is what drives them to make more. Now again, if they then also, that's an element. If they also compared themselves to people who made significantly more, they might make even more than that. And so it's not like, oh wait, are these contradictory? It's like, no, they're additive. The problem is that most poor people know a lot of other poor people, and so they're not that poor relative to the people they know. So the deprivation to their reference group is basically nil, it's 0. And so too is their motivation. 9. Assets put money in your pocket. Most people are so busy looking for outside investments, they completely miss the most obvious opportunities staring them in the face, which is understanding what actually makes them money. Number 9. Middle-class families teach their kids that their home and car are assets. Rich families will teach their kids that assets are only things that put money back into your pocket. The only money rules that matter to me are 1. Spend less than you earn. I say this as, duh, and yet so few people will do it. 2. Buy stuff that goes up in value. If you spend less than you earn, you'll have some left over. With the leftover, you buy stuff that will be worth more tomorrow. But that stuff that will be worth more tomorrow might be a skill. And the thing is, if you thought of a skill as an extra $1,000 a month, then what investments can you pay $500 for one time that make you an extra $1,000 a month for the rest of your life? That would be an insane investment, and that's what skills are. And here's what's even crazier, they're not taxable. You also can't lose them in a divorce. No government can take it from you. It might be because my family fled from Iran during the revolution, and so we lost everything. The only thing we had was education, but that's why I'm so hard on this stuff. 3. Eventually, when this stuff makes you more than you need to live, you're good. Happy face. Everything else is just bonus. It sounds obvious, but the thing is that simple things can be simple to understand but difficult to execute because that's where the heart is with this stuff. It's not in the understanding, it's in the doing. I actually wrote this. People fail not because there's some magical list nobody has. They fail because it's an obvious list nobody does. 10. Higher minimum standards. Rich parents have a higher minimum standard. What does that mean? There are a couple of ways to think about this. Number 1 is that rich parents will talk in different orders of magnitude, in different increments. This is the classic example of Warren Buffett, when asked to do a mic check, was like, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. And it's just like, and I know it was a joke at the time, but I thought about that because when I was a younger kid, I used to count my money and how many Chipotle burritos I could buy. And then as I got older, it turned into a larger increment, which for me was actually the number of customers I had to sell in order to make something. And then over time, Basically, it's just the number of units of something that I've had to sell in order to get whatever I want. It's just the unit of thing has just stayed stagnant, and the cost of those things has gone up. Rich parents simply won't allow their kids to go below or accept opportunities that are below the minimum. I'll give you a different example. There's a guy that I know who grew up rich, super rich, New York rich. He has somehow been able to make, call it, 400,000 minus 500,000 a year for the vast majority of his adult life with basically no skills. Like, he does nothing. I'm very confident, like, he actually does nothing. And what's interesting though is that he's had to go from thing to thing because eventually people figure that out. But he will stand there in a negotiation and they're like, hey, we'll pay you $385,000. And he's like, I'm not working here for less than $450,000. And the crazy thing is, because he just genuinely, delusionally just he would rather be broke than be someone who makes less than that. And so I think that is kind of the declarative knowledge, those standards that are passed down. That is probably some of the biggest gifts. It's of course, you're not going to do that, it's not worth your time. They simply wait for better opportunities. That's really it. They just won't say yes to something that's not as good, and they'll just wait. Think about it in a guys and girls scenario. There are tons of poor guys who have hot girls, and there are tons of ugly dudes who have hot girls who aren't rich. They exist. Believe they exist. What separates them from the other guy who's equally bad looking, who doesn't have the hot girl? The other guy just went on more dates or waited longer. He just kissed more toads, whatever you want to say, right? Eventually, there's going to be some crazy, hot enough girl that's just you know what, he's my kind of ugly, and it works. And that's the thing that I think a lot of poor parents don't transfer their kids is there's a significantly higher amount of volume, and because they know it's possible, and rich kids aren't smarter than poor kids, they might be more educated but not smarter. And so if them, why not you? Another big difference here on minimum standards is that the measuring stick they use to measure is bigger. They're measuring increments. Listen to the examples that people are talking about that they claim are a lot around you. If you meet somebody and they're it was $1,000, that $1,000 might. That's them demonstrating that this is an increment that is meaningful to me. You always want to hang out with the person who has the largest increment that they measure things with, the largest measuring stick. I'll give you a finance example from hedge funds in New York. They have a slang term for $1 million, which is 8 stick. So it's 2 sticks, 4 sticks, because it's such a common increment of money. Hard to fathom when you didn't grow up around that. 11. Leverage the right sources of money. There are 4 types of money, or rather, 4 sources that you can pull that you can use for leverage. And this is super important.